10, some key performances, and we see the two new marquee schools in this conference, man. UCLA and USC projected to be number 1 and 2 in the conference.
Yeah, Juju Watkins, we know what she can do with USC. One of the best teams in the country, obviously. UCLA is another one of the teams with USC coming in that's going to be overlooked a little bit. But I think of all the sports that gets improved with those 4 schools entering, I think women's basketball might be at the top.
Of course, the Bruins upset South Carolina last week and broke up their long winning streak, which dated back to the spring of 2023 when Iowa beat South Carolina in the Final Four back then. We mentioned it earlier, this Hoosiers team had their season ended last year by the Gamecocks in a 4-point game in the Sweet 16. Here's Caroline Boardman going up for the shot and unable to hit. But yeah, in the last few seasons, the Big Ten has really become a powerhouse in women's basketball. Not considered that traditionally, but between Indiana, Iowa, Ohio State, and now adding those 2 teams from Cali and even Oregon as well, this conference has really gotten a lot better.
Yeah. And I think too, it's a big time for the conference to get better with some of these Big Ten teams taking maybe a little step back from years prior.
Another 3 goes down for Indiana. That time it's Chase Chesky hitting her second of the day. Now Chesky's guarding Sarah Hodgson up top and is called for the bump.
You know, obviously with Iowa losing Caitlin Clark, they take a massive step back, maybe a bigger step back than anyone. And that's not to say how not great they'll be this year, but it's more of how great they have been in years prior. Indiana is in that boat as well. Going to take a little step back.
But the Hawkeyes are 8-0 so far, Ben.
That's true.
And they didn't even go 8-0 with Caitlin Clark on the team ever.
Yeah, that was their best start since, I forget what that number was.
It was 05, 04, 05.
Yeah, something like that. And I'll tell you what, Lisa Pluter gone as well. We talk about Caitlin Clark, we'll talk about the coach behind that as well.
As another foul is called on IU on the inbound, and this conference is just very, very deep. I mean, I didn't even mention Maryland there. They're always around.
Ohio
Illinois
State's
is off to a good
around.
start this season, but there's a lot of good teams.
Yeah.
And Indiana will start Big Ten play 6 days from today, where they'll head to Penn Station. It'll be a return game for Shea Chesky, who has the ball now.
That's going to be exciting. We just showed up there the performance that Gracie Merkel had. 31 points, 11 rebounds, and a double-double against Drexel. They can play tough down low. That's going to be one of the toughest tests all season for some of these post players for Indiana and Lily Meister and Caroline Strickland.
It's been a choppy start to this quarter. After that first half, felt like we almost saw no fouls.
Yeah.
We've had kind of 3 back-to-back here to start the third quarter.
Yeah, Maine started to get used to these underneath out-of-bounds plays for Indiana. That's actually 2 in this happened in the last few minutes of the third quarter, and now they've just anticipated passes. Gearzone was maybe staring down too much.
There she goes. She inbounds that time straight to Lily Meister, who is right at the hoop for the lay-in.
Well, good job adjusting by Terry Board on that one.
Indiana now leading by 25, their largest lead today. For this Maine team, they're just looking to find their offense again after scoring 13 in that third quarter. Hodgson has it in the corner. Chesky harassing her. But then Chesky is called for another one of those fouls, guarding the perimeter.
You know, I know we talked about this earlier on the broadcast, how great of a cause that Indiana wearing their red uniforms at home is going to support the battle of ALS. And on top of it, you know, I know a lot of people love the classics, but I am a sucker for a good primary color on primary color contest. A nice red versus blue.
I was going to actually ask you about that, Ben, because it's a new thing. It's something that we didn't really see before 3 or 4 years ago, I'd say,
it is.
In sports in general, everywhere. And now we see it pretty often. And
especially
I think I'm with you.
Especially the NBA and WNBA right now, too. You're seeing it so much.
Nice scoop layup that time for Caroline Dotsie. But it's this new age, you know, the home team doesn't have to wear white every game like we kind of got accustomed to. And now we see these teams kind of mix it up. IU doesn't do that very often, but a couple times a year they have some sort of alternate uniform for some cause or some other reason, and this is one of those days. Gearzone wild layup attempt doesn't fall, but it's last touch by the Black Bears, so Indiana keeps possession.
I think Indiana's going to do it probably less than most.
So we have a trivia question here. And the question, Ben, neither of us know the answer. Which Bob Knight student is the only coach to suffer a loss to Maine in the NCAA tournament?
So we're saying Bob Knight student here. So not like player, like a Bob Knight student, because I did hear he taught basketball classes here at Indiana.
He sure did. I don't know the answer. I know when Maine won their only.
I feel like I only have one guess.
I know when Maine won their only game in the NCAA tournament. That was in 1999. And, yeah, that was in 1999. I don't have the team, but I also have a guess. What's yours? I'm
going to go Tara Vanderveer is the only women's college basketball coach that I could think of that would be a student of Bob Knight that went to Indiana. Obviously, that wouldn't be clarified as maybe a player of Bob Knight. So Tara Vanderveer has to be my answer.
I had the same answer.
Yeah,
Vanderveer, who's just retired this spring. Not sure if that's the answer or not. We'll find out soon. But, yeah, this Maine team has made the NCAA tournament 10 times, and they're 1-10 in those games. So they've only won one. And I should have wrote down in my notes who they lost to. That would have who they beat. I mean,
that would have been too easy.
I know.
You would have been given the answer.
I knew. Maybe I knew writing down my notes that I was going to have to be tested on it. As Meister with the stuff of Sarah Talent. Chesky in transition fires away off the mark, but Meister tracks it down after getting the block. Up to LaMendola. Chesky's open again, but she'll pull it out and restart the offense.
Yeah, I like that. A lot of times, the analytics say the best three-pointers to take is off of an offensive rebound.
But McNeil ends up taking one from deep.
Yeah.
And then she finds Sandvik wide open near the rim.
What I was trying to get at is that if there is a scenario to not take it and really take time off the shot clock, it's in a situation like this where you're up by a lot and you want to just take time off the clock. And what do you know? They get another offensive rebound and find a nice open cutter on the baseline.
25-point lead for IU as Dotsie drains another three. She has 13 points, back-to-back games in double figures for Caroline Dotsie after she had never done so in her first season in 6 games.
I mean, that's a nice development for Maine heading forward. They start American East play decently soon, is just to have as many options as humanly possible.
Chesky falls short on the mini J. Here's Dotsie again going to work against Lily Meister. She beats her to the other side of the hoop.
Yeah, I think Meister looks maybe a little tired right now when Dotsie has that extra step. And we talk about how big that is for Maine. Adriana Smith being out, we talked about that a lot. Also, Maddie Fitzpatrick was expected to be a big part of this Maine team as only a freshman. She was a 2-time Maine High School Player of the Year, but she goes down with injury as well. She'll be out.
So Indiana scores again, and they lead this one by 22, 70-48 here. Stay with us as we'll have the answer to our trivia question on the other side of the break on Big Ten Plus. back here where Indiana has the big lead on Maine midway through the fourth quarter alongside Ben Howler. I'm Zion Brown as Riley Stark is roaming the sidelines for us today as well. As we go back to our trivia question, Ben, we were right. Tara Vanderveer is the only former Bob Knight student to lose a game to Maine in the NCAA tournament. It came in 1999, as I mentioned before the break. And Amy Vachon, Maine head coach, was actually the starting point guard on that team when they won that game.
I told you, Vachon is this Maine program. I mean, they are so fortunate to have her. They love having her, but I'll tell you what, 1 for 1, might have to roll this talent into Thursday night Buffaloes.
Vachon scored 11 points in that game, and she's the all-time leading assister in this program's history and in the history of the American East Conference. It's been over 2 decades later, and no one has surpassed her.
And, a lot of times it's no surprise. A lot of times the best coaches are the ones who played point guard in their careers.
Terry Morin as well was a guard at Purdue, Indiana's biggest rival.
Yeah.
And now she has come over and built this program up. Hoosiers forced another turnover there. Maine now has 13 as we see Sandvik knock down the 2-point jumper.
Yeah, nice look for Sandvik. This is an Indiana team that shoots more mid-range shots than most, and they have a lot of players that can knock them down. But it's big. You don't get a lot of minutes to come off the bench and just be able to knock down a shot like that.
Dotsie has it for Maine. To J.C. Christopher. Dotsie flat on that 3. And Lamondola gets it for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, if you're Indiana right now, it's that time of game where you're kind of content just taking time off the clock.
But they quickly do find Sandvik, who doesn't hit the layup but gets her on board. Chesky to Garzone. Swinging it around this zone. Garzone tries a 2 from a similar spot that Sandvik just hits from.
And Indiana takes a lot of time in the shot clock. That's something that they weren't doing in the first half, and usually that's a negative thing, but in the first half, they weren't doing that because they had so many good looks early in the shot clock. So you can't be too upset with it.
This Maine offense has only scored 20 points in this second half after it was an 8-point game at the break. As here's a wild shot from Caroline Boardman. She just had to force it up with the shot clock going down, and that'll be a 30-second violation.
Yeah, I really liked the job that Indiana's done on Boardman today. We talked about how tough of a matchup she is, how quick she can be using that size and getting down low, but Indiana's played her well.
The Hoosiers bring on Valentina Kadlikova from the Czech Republic and Faith Wiseman, a fellow Indiana native, as they start to empty out the bench with this win secured. They try to feed Wiseman down low, and she's fouled.
Yeah, it's nice to get some of these guys some minutes. And so many great things about a blowout win like this. Analytics has become such a big part of the college basketball selection committee these days, and getting that big margin of victory cannot hurt.
Charnice Curry-Jelks into the game as well for the first time today. And for the first time this year, Ben, the Women's Tournament and Selection Committee will be using a quad system. So it will be interesting to see how they kind of go about that and how that is used when it comes to comparing resumes. It's been used for, I would say, about a decade on the men's side, and now the women are following suit.
Very mixed reviews about it on the men's side, I think, but I think it's just used as kind of a sorting tool. It's not the end-all, be-all for a lot of teams, but it can give you a pretty good idea.
Deep 3 drilled that time by J.C. Christopher. She has 7 points today. Christopher is mainly a 3-point shooter, but she's actually shot 2 from deep in this game, as Sandvik's pass is wayward but knocked out of bounds by Maine. This Maine team will continue playing in Indiana. They'll head to Purdue on Wednesday, and the Hoosiers will host another Indiana team, Southern Indiana, here on Wednesday night, as Morin has to take a timeout to prevent a 5-second violation. But both these teams looking to shore up some things. The Hoosiers, we mentioned already, but they play at Penn State 6 days from today to start Big Ten play, and that's a Penn State team that, you know, is really good, a pretty good offense usually. They can shoot the ball really well, and we saw them earlier today. They just play good basketball.
Yeah, we've seen it for a couple of these really good Indiana teams, how it's caused some problems. It feels like they always play this game at Penn State in December. And that first conference game, sometimes you just never know what to expect. But you get a couple of bye games in between that and your next Big Ten game they play Wisconsin.
As we look at Maine, they're in the second game of a 4-game road trip right now. They'll take about a month off from playing a home game. Their last home game was on November 24th. And as you see right there, they won't play at home again until December 21st. So you can learn a lot about yourselves being on the road that long and having to go against teams and their environments.
You got to just think the travel's tough
Yeah.
for Maine. There's only one direction to go. I mean, it's tough for a lot of teams, especially Indiana, now being in the Big Ten, having to go all different directions. But Maine, they really can only go one direction.
From Orono, Maine, it's hard to get to airports and whatnot sometimes in areas like that, as we see Bargesser hit the layup through contact.
I would assume that they're not going back to Maine before their contest on Wednesday in 3 days with Purdue. But, yeah, how about Alexis Bargesser? I mean, I've liked a lot of these plays from some of the Indiana role players. They've just been strong today. The finishing down low is something that's improved throughout the game.
Bargesser, we mentioned it, missed the first 4 games this year with a foot injury and returned in the Bahamas. That was her first bucket today. She's now 0 for 3 at the charity stripe in this game.
Yeah, something to clean up. Free throw shooting has been a problem at points, but it hasn't been anything detrimental for Indiana so far. So it's not anything, you know, crazy urgent, but.
Well, Bargesser shot 5 of 6 at the line of the Bahamas. Maybe she just needs to always be in a ballroom.
Maybe not in the country.
Here she is in transition, going behind the back and scoring.
I mean, it actually is an interesting point. A lot of times, like, players struggle with that ballroom setting just because of the lighting and the depth perception, those kinds of things. That's a serious thing for shooters. But Bargesser liked it.
Another Maine turnover as the Hoosiers a minute and 23 away from wrapping up this win to go to 5-3 on the season. Bargesser into the corner. Sandvik rims out on the long ball. Faith Wiseman gets it and misses. And then Curry Jelks was the last to touch it. Wiseman still searching for her first points in an IU uniform. That was actually her first field goal attempt. She played a couple games earlier this season, but didn't shoot the ball in those contests.
Yeah, it takes some of these people a lot of time to get accustomed to what a real game speed is like. And sometimes you underestimate it a little bit.
Wiseman, the true freshman from Martinsville, Indiana. Just north here of Bloomington. As Charnice Curry-Jelks comes away with the rebound. Wiseman again down low, can't hit again. This time she gets her own board, but has it stripped by Christopher. That might just be butterflies, Ben.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's a good drop step. Nice move by Wiseman getting down low. But I think when all is said and done, her teammates are to give her a rough time about that, jokingly. She'll get her first points in IU uniform at some point, but I think Indiana's just going to dribble this one out.
So Indiana outscores Maine 42-25 in the second half. And the Hoosiers take this one 78-53 to get back in the win column in Assembly Hall.
Yeah, I like the way Maine was able to, stay in the game in the first half. They made some really nice shots, hit a couple of big threes in that first half, but it was Indiana keeping their foot on the gas. This Indiana team already has looked so much better than they did 2-3 weeks ago, and I think that's the main goal when you lose a lot of talent, is just continuously get better and improve throughout the season. 4-0 all time against Maine. And you had some funny numbers about the scores of the first 3 matchups for IU Maine.
The first 3, Indiana won all 3. 2 of them were 67-59. The other one was 67-58. Just how often will two teams play each other 3 times and the score be almost identical all 3 times? This one a little different. 78-53 is the winning score for the Hoosiers. But they get it done, and now we see IU kind of one of their best shooting nights of the season. They shot 50% from 3, Ben, 11 of 22.
Yeah, I've said it a couple times in the broadcast. Sometimes for a whole season, all it takes is that one game. You're not really worried about Indiana shooting this season. It got off to a slow start, obviously. But they have so many capable shooters on this roster. And sometimes when one player starts to knock it down and get hot, that can be contagious to a lot of the other players. Shout out Chloe Moore McNeil, who stirs the pot for a lot of different areas of this Indiana team. Maybe 3-point shooting she can add to it.
Yeah, once again, she shot 41% from deep last year, came into today at just 28%. But Moore McNeil knocked down 4 threes today. Yarn Garzone added 3 as well. And once again, it was just a dominant second half for IU. Their lead was as high as 27. And they won this one by 25, and now they'll have a few days to regroup before playing Southern Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, you get one more bye game before a big one against Penn State. Your first real a big challenge. Obviously, I think Atlantis is going to help it a lot. You get a couple of really nice opponents at Baylor and North Carolina. Things have been really up and down for this team to this point. That's just the reality of the situation. And once conference play starts, that's all the importance. They need to play well against Penn State.
IU wins it by 25. And Chloe Moore McNeil had a career high 22 in this game. And with Chloe Moore McNeil is Riley Stark.
Thanks, guys. 22 points today. How did you keep your composure while staying so hot offensively?
Yeah, just coming in, we had obviously a bad game last game we had. So we knew we wanted to turn over, and we knew we had to be better on both ends of the floor. So just taking pride in my leadership and being better for my teammates is what I wanted to do today.
And then defensively, the momentum was also there that we hadn't seen in a while. How are you going to carry that into next week with Big Ten play?
Of course, just as you said, we have to carry that into Big Ten play. You know, we have a tough conference, and on defense and offense, but especially defense, we can't have any slippage.
And then you mentioned leadership as a fifth-year senior. How has that changed for you this year? What have you been doing?
Yeah, it's changed not too much, just becoming more vocal consistently, but also setting the example and setting the tone on defense for us.
Well, thanks so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Riley. As we see Chloe Moore McNeil, she was really the leader today. Between her 22 points and Lily Meister's 18, Indiana got a lot from those 2 players.
I think she wanted the microphone alongside with the 22 points as a reward. But 8 for 10 shooting, she's someone that's been so efficient in her career in Indiana, and she's worn this Indiana uniform